What is up, guys? Welcome to another video, and today we have a very different video. Today we're going to be reviewing Carx. What is it actually called? Carx Drifting Racing Online. It's quite a big mouthful, that is. So essentially, the developers emailed me and they said, if you want us to give you a code to review the game, we can review the game. And I've heard very mixed things about this game, so naturally I was intrigued. I've heard some people say it's really not good. I've heard some people say it's really good. Like slap trains. So I was like, you know what, if I'm not paying for it, I might as well give it a go and see what's happening, and then at least I get a review out of it in the end. So this is my honest review of Carx Drifting Racing Online. Yes, I did have to read that off my screen because I almost forgot then. This game is interesting. I think that's the best way to kind of start this review. So I'm coming from a completely neutral standpoint. I went into this game with extremely low expectations, and I think I kind of came out and those expectations were somewhat met with fun-ish gameplay at points, but at other points it definitely got very frustrating. So when I first got into the game, I was given this screen and it basically showed me all the cars that I could buy to start off with. One of those was an ND MX-5, and then it went all the way to an A86, which didn't make any sense. One thing which I noticed, which looked really dodgy, was the fact that these weren't actually licensed cars. They weren't called like an A86. Well, it was, but it was called it in Japanese. It was kind of like a nickname. Basically, I think A86 is Hyroku in Japanese, and they basically used that instead of just calling it a Toyota A86, which leads me to think that none of these cars are licensed and they've just ripped the car models from somewhere else. I don't know, that initially to me immediately gave me bad signs. The fact that these cars aren't licensed and they are literally ripped, they're just ripped versions of an A86, that gave me very bad vibes to start off with. It wasn't like GTA, like, you know, it quite clearly looks like an R32, but an Elgato Custom is different and it has its own distinct thing, which the R32 doesn't in real life. It's not like GTA where, like, you can tell that a Banshee is a Viper, but it's not a Viper. That is quite clearly an A86. That is not whatever it's called. That is an A86. There's nothing going around it. There's a quite big difference between a Futo and an A86. But anyway, that's my kind of minor gripe out of the way. I then looked at the car list and noticed that the car list was very varied. Had everything from trucks to utes to JDM cars to muscle cars. All types of things are in the car list. But again, none of them are licensed. They're all rip-offs of licensed cars, just given a slightly different name. And to my surprise, none of them are actually like customizable in terms of body kits, etc. Anyway, I decided to pick the A86, and one thing I noticed straight off the bat is there's no controller support in the lobbies. When you're just going through menus and stuff, your controller isn't going to work, which, to be honest, is pretty fucking disappointing. As well as that, you can quite clearly tell this is a mobile game. There's no ifs, ands, or buts. I didn't know anything about this game going into it, and I kind of came out with it like realizing that this is a mobile game. They've tried to get onto PC. The one thing which actually had me wary is when I was going through the menus, when you go into the multiplayer menu, it shows phones instead of like PCs or gaming things. It showed a phone, and I was like, that looks a bit sus, really. Anyway, I went into it with my stock A86, and I went in to do, I think it was a drift event first. And the first event I ever did was really bad. The car just understeered. I soon realized that this was going absolutely nowhere. So what I did was I just finished that race, and I put a tune on the car. A drift tune, to be exact, obviously. And that made things a bit easier, and the physics weren't bad. The physics aren't awfully bad. They're a bit hard to understand, and for some reason, when I was in cockpit view, the car would counter steer for me. It was very weird. So I would deem the cockpit view as unplayable. It's kind of surprising there's even a cockpit view to start off with, but for me, I'd say the cockpit view is pretty much unplayable. So yeah, my drift tune made everything a whole lot better. Then I came to the realization that there's literally no AI in this game. That leads me on to the modes. So you have a time attack mode and a drift mode. That is it. You can take your skills online, but again, we'll talk about online a bit later. I honestly wouldn't say there's particularly too much replay value in this game. And honestly, once you have like specific tunes for specific cars, for example, when I had the drift tune on the A86 or the Hyroku, whatever the fuck it's called, I was pretty much acing every single track first time round. Another thing about the tracks and the progression is once you unlock a track, you still have to buy it. Which in my opinion, when you buy a game for £8, I think it is on Steam, you should not have to do that. That's just a bit of a cop-out, really. And another thing with that is when you go online, you can play the locked tracks even if you don't have them unlocked, like, to begin with. So it kind of defeats the purpose in locking them up in the first place if you can just go online and race them, which again made no sense to me. So I was like, you know what, I've experienced what there is to experience in these first few tracks, why don't I go ahead and go online and see what it's like there. I soon realised that everyone online is really good at this game. There's no type of skill-based matchmaking or anything, you just basically pick from a bunch of servers. Obviously me being in the start at A86 wasn't the greatest thing, really. But one thing which was surprising, and this isn't really the game as such, but the community was really nice, actually. Anytime I went into a lobby, I was easily, like, I could easily start a race with anyone, which was really nice to see. I wasn't expecting that. Every lobby I went into, I got into a race, which was pretty cool. But I got pounded because, like, there's no skill-based matchmaking. There's no, like, handicap or anything. If you go into a lobby with a stock A86, you are going to get rammed. So the next 20 minutes of me playing, basically, just consisted of me driving other tracks and trying to get enough money to unlock and buy an R34, which isn't called an R34 in this game because they're not licensed. I then bought the R34, and obviously stock, it was a lot better than the A86, but it's still understeered like mad. I cannot explain how bad this understeering problem is in a drift game. And I was like, you know what, why don't I buy a race tune for this one? So I ended up buying a race tune for this car. Definitely a lot better. For a start, it was definitely a lot better than I anticipated it to be. The car didn't understeer as much. It still did understeer, don't get me wrong, but not as much. I was able to go and enter corners at higher speeds and stuff, just kind of your basic race tune things that you'd expect to see. And then I kind of found myself like doing the same thing over and over and over. And this is where the game really has a problem. It's one thing for the controller not to work in menus. It's one thing for the cars to have literally no customization when you have wide bodies in the game and stuff's a bit weird. It's one thing to have no AI in the game. But when I'm doing the same thing over and over and over, it got boring, it got repetitive, it got dreary, and I was like, you know what, I've played about an hour of this game and I feel like I've just done everything there is to do. I drove a good like 5 or 6 tracks, I believe, and it got to the point where like I wasn't having fun. And in my opinion, a game, you should have fun with it. Like, when I pick up a game to have fun with it. This was not fun. This was me trying to farm credits so I can unlock tracks which I've theoretically already paid for. If you paid $8 or £8 for this game, you should already have the tracks there. That should be a thing. So essentially, it got to the point where I was just grinding to unlock tracks. And you may say, oh, you only played an hour of this game, but you've got to keep in mind there's really not much to do. Where this game falls for me in terms of gameplay and, you know, in terms of the whole game itself, really, is its boring, repetitive, grindy nature. This is a mobile game. I'm not sure whether it's a free mobile game or what, but you can tell, and I don't think they should have brought it onto PC. And if they were going to bring it onto PC, they should have made some huge changes. For example, making the controllers work in menus. I would pick up this game if it was very cheap in a Steam sale or on G2A. Otherwise, to be honest, I'd save those £8 and get a classic game that's on Steam. If I just look through Steam now, I'm probably sure I could find one. Right, so I've just had a quick flick through on Steam of games. Burnout Paradise, I'd buy Trackmania over this. The game is $6.99 on Steam, so it's not awfully expensive, and you can definitely see why. But I'd save the money and get a classic game instead, because there's a lot more replay value in it, and to be honest, you probably get a lot more value for money. If this wasn't giving it to me for free, would I buy the game? I think that's the bottom line. No, I wouldn't. For all the reasons mentioned, it doesn't feel like a PC game. It feels like a mobile game still, which is bad. The two redeeming things this game has is obviously the drift physics. They are relatively fun as long as you're not in cockpit view, but I think over time they would get repetitive, and this is definitely not a game that you're going to be playing for months on end. And the community was really, really welcoming. I only did a few multiplayer lobbies, but you know, it seemed to be like everyone was, you know, everyone wanted to race, everyone wanted to drift, so no matter what you want to do online, you can probably find someone to do with it. But like I said, you're going to get pounded in the process of playing online. So anyway, that's my thoughts of Carx racing drifting online, I think it's called. Yeah, that's all I have to say, really. I'll see you guys in the next one. You guys have been awesome. Stay safe and peace.